You ever experience that the week leading up to practice, you're just on fire? Everything's clicking, you're getting into tackles, you're making the right passes, everything's connecting, your dribble is on, your shot is on, both right foot, left foot, everything's happening exactly as you want it to happen. But then comes game time, right? That weekend, your stomach starts to turn, your heart's pounding, and you don't find the confidence that you had during practice. You're second guessing yourself, you feel like your confidence is dropped, and you're not able to do the things that you did so beautifully at practice and implement them come game time. If you're saying yes to this and you've experienced something like this before, then you are falling to what 95% of footballers, soccer players have fallen to in becoming practice players. I'm going to explain to you in this episode exactly what that is, and I'm going to give you a tool so you can work around this and change this so you don't have to fall into this and you are able to do what you need to do in games. So let's get started. The way this works is it's called the 90-10 rule. You see, in practice, 90% of your effort and your time is going to go towards your physical, being fit, lifting weights, running sprints, speed ladder, or your technical, okay, which is outside of the foot, inside of the foot, and the way that you are technically able to beat certain players in your shot and keeping your knee over the ball, so on and so forth. Now, the challenge with this is that only 10% of the time is being put towards mental. Now let's take all this and fast forward once we've gone through our week of training, and here we are come game time. And the script flips significantly at that time. And what happens is, at that point in time, the game, it becomes 90% mental and 10% physical and technical. You see, when we talk about mental, physical, and technical, the reason I'm bringing those up because those are the only three things you can train anyway. And I think I've mentioned that before. And if you've heard me talk before, then you know that I speak about that all the time. That's all we got, guys. You're sitting there right now and you're comparing yourself to players that are playing at a higher level than you, whether it be Division I or on the first team in the club or signed professional contracts or guys in Champions League or national teams that you've seen. The thing that you have in common with them and with me and with everybody else is that that's the only things you can train. Your technical, your physical, and your mental. So, recap. Practice, you're putting 90% effort into your physical and your technical and maybe 10% into your mental. And then come game time, and what your body demands of you is not the physical and technical, but rather the mental. So, with that being said, and now that we understand that, how do we work around that? So, the 90-10 rule works like this. If you can find a way to train like you want to perform in a game, meaning treat your practice like a game, then you will approach your game as if it's practice. You see, there's this big difference between practice and game. Our job as soccer players is how do we bring this gap closer together? How do we bridge the gap between practice and games? Because at the end of the day, we understand that game time is when it's on. That's when it counts the most. So it would make sense that that's when your mind starts playing tricks on you and sending physiological messages to your body. Drop in body language, things such as self-doubt, not being sure, playing it safe because you want to be perfect. You don't want to make mistakes. So instead of going forward, you put your foot on the ball and play it back, right? Not asking for the ball or demanding the ball the way that you know that you should, the way that you do when you're playing well and you're at practice and you're checking too and you're asking for the ball. Look, both you and I know there's asking for the ball and there's demanding the ball. Yeah. You don't really want the ball and your teammates know it and they don't give you the ball. And that's what oftentimes happens in games. We let our mind take over, okay? And so the tool and the way to work around this is quite simple in theory, but it's difficult to do. You want to try and make your practice as much game-like pressure as possible. Initially, you're going to feel nerves. That means you're doing it right. I want you to get nervous at practice because we already know you're going to get nervous in the game. That's just natural. That's going to happen. Nothing I'm going to teach you is going to make you immune to pressure, to expectations. That's there. That's what we signed up for. We signed up to be high-level soccer players. That's what we signed up for, the pressure, the money time, the big moments, the spotlight. So we're not going to work around that. But we are going to learn how to deal with that. So this is what this looks like. I want you to train And I want you to set up certain things in your training sessions that are game-like experiences. Apply that pressure. The way to do that might be, if you're doing 1v1 drills, talk to the defender. Make a bet, a wager, push-ups, sprints. Put something on the line. Because when Sunday or Saturday rolls around, there's something on the line. Your performance matters a lot. So, with that said, set those things up. It can look in the form of maybe an inner squad, right? When you guys are training, you're going to have situations where the coach often says, you know what, losers have to do sprints. Make it bigger than that. Make a bet for a PK. I'm going to make these next 3 PKs in a row. If I miss one, I got to run a mile. I promise you, you're going to approach that PK differently because there's something on the line. The problem is you are putting a lot of effort towards your physical and towards your technical, but you are not putting a lot of effort towards your mental in practice. Yet you want your mental game to show up for you come game time. It's not an on and off switch. It doesn't work that way. You have to train with the nerves, with the anxiety, with the pressure, so you become immune to it. You become understanding of it, and you become comfortable with it. Initially, it's going to be uncomfortable, but we already know game time is going to be uncomfortable. So let's get uncomfortable in practice. And then when the game comes around, that uncomfortableness, you will have been used to it because you've been training it. You see, my objective for you is for you to be at your max potential. That's what you want for yourself as well. And you've done things in practice that you say, hey, if I play like that in games, I'm just fine. But it doesn't happen because you haven't been training your mental. So the way to train your mental around this thing, I'll repeat and say it again, find ways to make your practice like a game. Make wagers with your coach, with your teammates. And you know what? You'll only be making them better as well, right? Let's get the most out of each other. Don't just go into practice as if it's practice and expect games to be at a higher level. Think about it logically. It doesn't make sense. You're not going to be able to do it. You want your practice to look like games. Set these things up. And right now, as I'm talking, you're probably starting to think to yourself, okay, how can I do this? How can I go ahead, in fact, do this and set these things up and set up these wagers and these mini bets and side bets and pressure situations? Do that. Go out this week in your very next practice and think about, how can I apply pressure on myself? You're going to start getting more and more comfortable with the pressure. Your body is going to know how to deal with it. So when the game rolls around, it's no big deal. Treat your game like practice. Treat your practice like games, and then your games will look like your practice. That's the idea. That's the message here. If you have any questions, I want to hear from you. I told you this entire mini podcast thing I'm setting up here is just to deliver these messages to you. But I recognize things in athletes that I work with, and I work with thousands of soccer players from youth level to professional level. And the concepts are all the same, and the things that are keeping us behind and not allowing you to play at your highest level are very similar. My job is to figure out, how can I, in fact, teach you these tools, these techniques, in order for you to be your best version of yourself so you can reach your max potential every single time consistently. With that said, I want to leave you with one last thing. If you can think about your very best game that you ever played, all right, think about it for a moment. Think about the best game you ever played where everything just clicked perfectly, or a training session for that matter. It doesn't have to be a game. But you played like that consistently every single time out. Where would you be now? You'd be in a much better, different place than you are. Okay, you would either have whatever contract you have, either professionally or national team. The problem is you're not able to hit that consistently. I don't want your good games to be, matter of fact, coincidence. I want them to be consistent and for you to know why you're performing at that level. And the way to do that is to train the way that you want to play and show up in games. So take these practices seriously. Work hard. I'm not saying that don't put 90%, don't put the effort into technical and physical. You're going to have to do that. You have to work harder than everybody else. Okay? You have to do more than everybody else. But you also have to train your mind. And that is a part of the game that is often overlooked, yet is the most important thing come game time. That's what's going to make you a level above everybody else. That's what's going to separate you from everybody else. I hope you took good notes here. I hope you are thinking about a way to formulate this and apply this to your practices. Ask me a question, anything that you're dealing with. I will promise you to answer every one of these things. Like I told you, email me at itzik@mentalcoachpro.com. Hit me up on Instagram, itzikmcp. Let's get after it. Let's get better. Let's do what others aren't doing. If you want what others aren't going to have, you got to be willing to do what others won't do. And most players are not going to train their mind. They're just going to keep hitting the weights and running sprints. You got to do more than that. I'm signing off. I'll talk to you guys later.